So add a new marker, jump. All right, we are back and we're going to now implement a jump so that our player here can avoid that spike. Because right now it's kind of a silly game. You just move forward, run to a spike and die. And that's not necessarily the best thing in the world. You made a platformer with P5.js too and used Node.js for a leaderboard. Yeah, I love P5 for front end type stuff. But of course I also like GGEZ for the back end, Rust thing, and they're very, I see the similarities between them. So I have a type of engine I like to use. Okay, so if I want to jump, let's come into game data here. And let's give ourselves a player. We're gonna want a jump, like a jump velocity. Like what is our jump force? And let's just say that this is, I don't really know what I want to make this. We'll just say 5. And then we're gonna want a gravity. Because jumping without falling down is not gonna be all that nice either. Let's set this to 1. Do gravity force. So now in our player, so our physics modules for the player, we only have the player physics in here. I guess we have static physics. We're gonna want an apply force. That's gonna take in a force. And we have a, I think we have a velocity. I don't think we have a velocity, do we? We have a, oh no, we do have, so here's this velocity. I might be able to get away with just adding, no, because we're gonna want an acceleration. So let's also create an acceleration here. And you're just going to be 0, 0. So the way that acceleration, velocity, and location, the way they all sort of work together is acceleration is just all the different forces that are affecting the player. So for example, in a single frame, we might start the jump. So that's going to be a large single velocity upwards. But then we're also going to apply gravity. So that's going to be a small amount downwards. But then the gravity keeps on. So every frame we add, we apply this force. Now, do I really care about that in this specific way? I don't know. I might be able to get away with not having acceleration at all. What if I can do apply force, we take the force, and we just apply this to the velocity right now. So we just say this dot velocity dot add force. So if I do that, when we're going to apply gravity, all the time, right? So everything that has gravity, that's affected by gravity, will need this apply force. So I could have a flag affected by gravity, and if that's affected by gravity, we run this function. Or I can just say, you know what, everything has this apply force. However, static elements don't really care about it. They're not going to do anything about applying the force like this. But this one does. And that means in our grid, in update, I thought I got rid of off-screen right and off-screen left. I don't even think I have those anymore. Yeah, I don't think we even have these anymore. We shouldn't even need these at all. So it's really just going to be looping through all these cells. I thought I deleted those earlier, but I guess I like undid something and then lost it. So we're looping through all the cells, and then we're going to handle the update for each individual cell. SidHant24, hello, good morning. So we handle the update. We do GameObject.update. Okay, so that's GameObject.update. Let's go to GameObject. In its update, we then do this.physics.update, this.location. And so here's where we can also do this.physics.applyForce, and then do game data. So we need to do a gravity. So we have the gravity force. Let's see, game data dot gravity force. Now I do need to probably create a gravity force for this. So what would that look like? We could just create a force directly, or I think more appropriately in game. So let gravity force, and we're gonna create that. Okay, so create a vector. The X moving horizontal, nothing happens. But the vertical is going to be game data dot gravity force. Now, gravity force should be a global that I can use in game object here. And I mean, normally globals are not the best thing to do, but this is like a constant global. It should like always be available. Okay, so we apply the force, gravity force. If I do this, we should see our player now just fall. Can't access property 2. This.cells of y index is undefined. Well, that's interesting. Oh, did he fall through? Is that the problem? I think the player fell down, which caused an issue. Okay, let's go back to the player. What is my gravity force? What if I move this to like being 0 dot, like really, really small? Or you know what? I can make the gravity force negative. That should make it go upwards. So like negative 1.0. That doesn't seem to do anything to it. So I want to this.velocity, add the force. The velocity is actually a vector. And then the gravity force in game. Okay, so it is the y that I'm caring about here. Under physics modules and update, I do have location dot add this dot velocity. And then we have the player move. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, so apply force. This isn't, let's see, it's the game object, the stuff physics apply force, and then the gravity force. And then that's what we think that is. Let's double check that it's actually happening here. Okay, yeah, we can see that we're getting this vector. It's happening right now. So it's constantly being called even right at this moment. It's probably not the best thing in the world. But because it's not happening, let's see. So we're applying the force. Update's not happening. Wait a second. So if we're doing that, that means our velocity is just going insane. It's like it's going to teleport essentially away from the screen when we start moving, because it's so like it's gathered so much upward movement. Yeah, if I hit right away, we see the player move up. There we go. So I can move the gravity force back again. And then we should see the player go back down. Bear Duda, good morning, hello. There. Now we see the player falls down through the floor. And then the game crashes because, well, the grid doesn't extend downwards, like below the screen. And we probably want it to. Or yeah, we probably want the grid to like go below the screen. How do we end up doing that? When we create the grid, we have this world vertical count, which is 4. Actually, no, we're passing that in, aren't we? It's our world height, which is off of game data. And our world height is 10. Oh, and I think that's like the entire thing. So I want you to extend downwards, essentially. Although, like, I wonder if that really needs to be part of the grid. Or if I can just say, hey, you're no longer in there. Don't worry. Just don't re-add you. That might work out. If we try to re-add you and you can't because you don't exist in here, then we should just not do anything. So let's handle this. Let's go to add. We figure out where this is going to be. And we want to double check. So if our x index is out of bounds, so if y index, do y first because that's like our height to the world. So if y index is greater than, do I store this? We do. So we have the horizontal count and the vertical count. So if this is greater than or equal to vertical count, or if x index horizontal count, and actually I'm okay with this happening. Oh, let's just do a return early. and we'll just not do anything at all. So this is a guard clause. So we'll guard against this. If we get to this cell, then we know that we're in the correct spot. So I think this works. Let's go ahead and check this again. Nope, that was not happy. Can't access property 2. This dot cells y is undefined. So line 118. Get game objects in cell. What were you trying to get? Actually, oh no, I do want to do this. I was going to say like maybe a debugger statement, but there's going to be a lot of those things. So 28, 29, 210. Oh, and then 210 is out of bounds. So we probably want the same thing. We'll want to return an empty object. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say if x is greater than or equal to this dot horizontal count, or we're going to return an empty object to guard against that. There he goes. It doesn't kill the game now. So this is interesting. If we're not running the game, we probably don't want to call those updates, do we? Like we don't care about updating the cells. Yeah, so we could just see ourselves falling. Let's not call updates of the grid unless we're in the right mode. So in game here, under draw, we have this grid.update. We only want to do this if we're in the correct state. So if state is equal to game data.states.plane, then we'll go ahead and update the grid. Now I can just wait here for as long as I want, or not. Okay, so that's. So we're basically not updating the grid. We're still drawing the grid out, so that's fine. The camera is drawing. That's all good. We're drawing the interface out, which is based upon the state. There you go. Single ent equals versus multiple equals. That's not cool. Okay, and now I can wait for as long as I want, hit return. I don't teleport off the screen. Everything just sort of updates as it is. So that's not cool. We don't want to fall off the bottom of the screen. Or do we? If we fall off the bottom of the screen, we want to just end the game, don't we? So let's get that going. How do we check to see if that is? Probably the physics module here. We're going to apply the force. If we are now outside of the grid, if we're outside of the grid, we're dead. That's really it. We're done. So let's create another method in here. And this could be just a Boolean, is outside of grid. We're going to take an X and Y coordinates. And I think in the physics module, do we have access to the grid? Is that? Oh, grid is global, right? Am I able to call that? Where am I doing that? Chantilly's not even here right now, Verduda. Are you just blaming her because I made it harder? You two started the Cold War. I guess it was not that cold. You both figured out a way to spam dropping, and that led to making it harder. Okay, so stop velocity. Where am I dealing with the grid? Okay, so when I moved into new cell, right? Okay, so I moved into new cell event. Where is that one being called? Because the grid is the grid is dealing with that. Okay. Hold on. When we move a cell, so when we update, let's go through this. We're gonna update. We update the game object, so then it falls through the bottom. We check to see if it's in the same location. We return early if it is. Otherwise, we're now going to remove it from the current cell that it's in, and then add it back into the cells. So here's where I want to now see. Then we call moved into new cell event. Okay. And I pass in the current cell that it's in. And that's for the game object. What I probably really want to do is check to see, is the player, I think the player is caring about this, right? Game object moved into new cell event. Yeah, moved into new cell event. And then get game objects in cell. So we pass in the current cell. And so here's where, if nothing is in this cell, then we're essentially outside of the grid. Like we don't exist anymore. So I can check for that. So if in current cell, there's nothing at all. So I am looping through everything in current cell. I probably want, so maybe instead of moving into new cell, I want to check to see here if the game object moved out of the grid. I want a different event, right? I want game object moved out of grid. That's what I want. So I want to do something like this. In constructor, we're going to have game object moved out of grid. We're going to just store that away. Down here, we want to get the game objects in the next cell. If it's, we probably want you to just return false at this point in time. And then we can figure out what we're going to return based upon that. So we'll just do const game objects equals, so in cell equals, and it's going to be this. If not game objects in cell, So if you're not in there, then I want to now call that other event. So what is the other event? Game object moved out of grid.notify. And that's, let's see. I have the game object here. So I can notify, and the data will be the game object that got passed in. So the player can check to see, hey, is it myself? Like, is it me who moved out? Else, we're going to notify and pass this object in the current cell, and it's going to be the game objects in cell. Bear Duda, you found the thingy. Yes, toggle desk mode. I have added that in because I can now do this and switch to standing mode. Move my chair out of the way. Yeah, so like I've actually got the camera now in a state that this actually works and doesn't like screw everything up. So I was super happy to be able to do that. So thank you, Bear Duda, for redeeming toggle desk mode. I'm not going to do that right away. I don't want to break the table by like constantly going up and down though. So I am going to wait at least like half an hour or so before I do it again. I haven't figured out a way to make it so that the redeem things like have a minimum time between them. Are you gonna joke that you have enough points for a decent exercise or burn out the voter? Yeah, no. That was something that I was thinking about when I was like, I wish that Twitch added that in so that I could like set timers for that. I think I might want to like have timers for like, here, you can do it again after X amount of time. But I don't have those right now. I'll just have to try to remember it. You'll have to remind me after like, half an hour or so. But anyways, sorry for wasting your points. Puzzle Gamers, hi. You're just watching and asked the question popped up, which reminded you're trying to find the answer to this but couldn't. When you get a crash in your JavaScript program, you can't examine variables and have to rerun with a breakpoint. Is there a way to get around that? Also, you love how oh, well, thank you very much. I'm glad I can help you out with that. Is there a way to examine the variables? You could either put a breakpoint in, but sometimes I find that I don't know where to put the appropriate breakpoint. Let's say that I'm right. Let's see. Here I am with game objects in cell. Let's say that like I don't know if this is like really happening in the right place, and so I have this false like I'm having this like check to hear if false. But what I could do is put brackets around here, and I'm gonna put debugger in, and debugger is a command that will tell the browser to pause. And it's just like a breakpoint that's dynamic. So I'm gonna start playing the game. The debugger, it actually says right here, paused on debugger statement. And now I'm paused and I can mouse over and inspect all these variables and see like, ooh, okay, I now see Y is now 10 and that's outside of the range of my grid. And that's the reason why it's failed. I can even come into the console and say, you know what? I want to just take a look at the entire grid object. Let me go ahead and do that. And I can inspect everything. It's frozen in time at this one spot. So it's exactly like a dynamic breakpoint, except I can even put it in if statements. So only hit when this is true instead of like, okay, breakpoint and hit forward like a billion times waiting for the appropriate thing to happen. So I really like, I hope that answers your question. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that debugger. Debuggers can actually be really nasty if you leave them in. Don't do that. Can you pause on exception? You know, I want to say yes, but that might be dependent on everything in here. Okay, pause on exceptions. You can do pause on exceptions. And then that should do the same thing. So let me cause, can I just throw? Yep, pause an exception. So I can throw an error and then pause on all thrown errors. And then I can actually see, hey, it caught right here. So thank you, Bear Doodah. That's a really excellent point right there. It also like brings me right to the line. It highlights it in red. I'm able to see. I'm not able to see it in the debugger yet, but I can now like then go and do whatever debugging that I need to do. So that's another excellent idea is pause on exceptions. And then also there's this pause on the caught exceptions. If I do that, I need to refresh. It won't caught. Oh no, because this isn't caught. It will fail with this. Sometimes you might like catch them with try catches. That would obviously not catch this one. So lots of different ways. Do you set pause and exception in a program? No, pause and exception, this is done in the browser. And so this is, I'm using Firefox developer mode. And so you go into the debugger, and then down here under breakpoints, you can do pause and exception instead of setting a breakpoint. That's, something I can do in lieu of. So lots of ways of handling this. Okay, so go ahead and leave that. That's fine. What was I doing? Let's rerun this again and see what we're doing. We hit the return here. We have this big set of errors. Can't access property 3. This .cells y is undefined. Right. Okay, so where is that? That's grid line 128. Non-tech question, but why is everyone typing drop? If you look right above me here, I have a little drop game going. And so if you type bang drop or hash drop, it will drop a cube that's of the color of your name inside of chat. And the goal is to try to land it on top of the moving platform, which is really hard, as you can see. Okay, so can't access property 3. This .cells y is undefined. So grid line 128. What did I do? Oh, I wanted to return false. There you go. Now I can play the game. Okay, so can't access property notify this game object move to grid is okay. Now what's happening is this event that I created doesn't exist yet. So we need to go create that.
Got a little Swedish there.
All right, so we're going to create an event, a new event system. Okay, so we're going to then pass this into the grid. All right, so that will make it that happy, and it shouldn't crash anymore, except nothing's Nothing's really paying attention to this, but no errors. It's perfectly fine. So when the player moves out of the grid, so when we moved into the new cell, actually it's not that, is it? We either move into a new cell or we move out of the grid. Okay, so if we, so game object move out of grid, we'll have to check to see if it's ourselves. Actually, I'm not going to store this away. This is slightly different. I want to create a method for this, and then we're gonna apply that. So it's essentially game object moved out of grid event. It's going to take an object, a game object, and the first thing I want to do is just console log what this game object is. And then in here, we're going to register a listener. So game object moved out of grid event dot register listener. All right. So now I should, okay, that doesn't like that. Oh, not a function. That's because I need to pass this into the physics module. So when we create the player here, let's go ahead and add in the game object moved out of the grid. There we go. I saved. Okay, so moved out of grid event, register listener. So physics module line 19. Oh, that's because I didn't name this correctly. Okay, grid event, register listener is not a function. That's in the constructor. I don't want this. There we go. So here's the object, and we can see that its type is player, and we can also see its ID is 0. Now, how do we know that it's us? How do we know that it's us? So we're inside the physics module. Oh, we could check to see if it's just the type player. We can also get our ID and just like know what ID that we're in. I kind of like the idea of storing our ID just to make certain sense that like who we are. Like, are we the correct person? So let's also take in our ID and store that away. And really, this is going to be this dot player ID equals. Let's change this to player ID. And then down here in game object moved out of grid, we have this game object. We can now say if game object dot ID, if that's exactly equal to this dot player ID. So if that's the case, then we dead. So we can now run the player died event. So this dot player died event dot notify. And that means we have to pass in. So game, when we create our player, let's pass in the next object ID into here too. Like that. And I think that will now switch us over to being able to die. There we go. Now we die when we go off the screen, and we can reset. Oh, can't access property location. Player is undefined because it's dead. It's gone. It's outside of the grid. So that's not cool. Let's check out chat. I saw a bunch of things happening. Oh, you can make the size of the drop block proportional to how much time you watch in channel. That would make an incentive to watch. Ooh, that would be interesting. I don't know how I would make it so that... I wonder how I would make it so that you don't... Let's see. It doesn't become like too big. But I do like where you're going with that. I like that idea a lot. Berduda, you suggested a pull request. Let's see. Could have a bot that interpreted JavaScript in chat so you could modify the program in chat. That would be extremely dangerous. Yes, absolutely. Sources on GitHub. If you fork it, let me actually go find that code and share it with you all. It's fun. Bring here. Let's go to the left. I want, where's my Brooks builds? I have my drop game. Oh, we called it stack it. That's what it is. Okay, so here's this. Bear Duda, you beat me to it. Okay. Thank you, Bear Duda, for that. Go ahead and just move you over there and close that window. That is the URL. So right up there, that's the URL for where that entire game is running. I am running the latest version of it, which is significantly harder. But now that you've started stacking, like in the center of the platform, you can start like building up. If you build out to the sides, they'll fall off. They'll fall off. Okay. Still need to add a thing where parts collapse when supporting end blocks. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can do, like physics-wise, that will be very interesting. But as you said, what do we work on? There's so many projects in so little time. Okay, so continuing on. We can't reset because the player is dead. The player is gone. And that's not cool. So why is that? Right now, when we call reset in game, we have reset game. This is just the method is coming in. Here's what I'm thinking. We need the player, right? What if we pass the player in as the data in the event? So we reset the state. We don't have to do this query to get the player anymore. We just have the player. So we can now reset the location. We add the player. We need to reset the velocity. So player dot oh wait, that's going to be player dot physics. Player dot player physics? No, that seems wrong. I think it's game object dot, yeah, player dot physics dot velocity okay, and then grid add. So then we add the player back into the grid, and then we notify that the player moved. Okay, I like this a lot. And that means we're gonna have to change where the reset game gets passed around. So in reset, I think that's in physics here. Is that true? No, okay, that's not gonna be quite as easy, is it? Because in game, reset is called here. Reset game event notify, and we don't have the player. So that's gonna be a problem. So we won't actually have the player like this. Hold on, let's do this. Let's come back. All right, so we're gonna want all right, back to this. We create the player here. We do have to reset the physics too. So we can do player dot physics dot okay. Then, so okay, remove game objects by type. I'm currently deleting the game, deleting the player when they go off the grid. I'm thinking that that's probably not the best of ideas. We want to instead continue storing the player. But maybe it can be off grid. So maybe we could have like this an off grid here. It's like this dot, like game objects off grid. And we can just have an array of these. When we do our handle update, we're deleting this right now. We do want to delete it, but we also want to first move this game object. So where is this? This is, we attempt to add. Let's see. Get game objects in cell. If there's none in there, we then notify, and that means we also need to add it to the, like, there's no game objects in there. So this dot game objects off grid, game object. Okay, so that pushes there and that. So in our game, we want to grid remove game objects by type. However, this is going to be a little bit more interesting, is it? Because I need to query for the player. So remove game objects by type off of the grid. Now, if there's nothing in here, what will you be? Let's take a look. What are you? Undefined. Okay, so you're undefined if you don't exist. So I'll change this to a let. And we can say if not player, then I need to get all the game objects that are off the grid. I guess I need to like loop through. The grid should probably handle that. We can do get and remove. How about this? Where am I? Remove game objects by type from the grid. Actually, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about this, remove game objects by type should remove it from like wherever it's stored, be it in that off-grid array or in the object. So let's go ahead and update that grid here. So remove game object by type. We're first gonna search for this. If we haven't found the results, so if results.length is 0 still, actually, you know what? It doesn't really matter. I don't really care if they're in here. We need to check for everything, like regardless. It might be, there might be multiple of them on the grid and off the grid. I need them all. Okay, so let's do this dot game objects off grid dot for each. This is going to be a game object that we get. And then for each of these, if the game object of type, okay, so if the game object dot type is exactly equals to type, then I want to results dot push the game object like that. Now I also want to remove it from here. So I also need the index to sort of like get rid of. That seems, it's not gonna be fun. I guess this isn't happening very often. So if I just set this to be like null, then we can flatten it, or yeah, then we can basically just clean that up a little bit. So let's do this. We have the game object and we have the index. Okay, so if that, let's go ahead and we push that in there, and then we're going to say this dot game objects off grid of position index equals to null. So we reset you, and then at the end of this, I want to clean you up. So we're going to say this dot game objects off grid dot filter sort of the game object. Basically, we want to do if your game object is like not nullable. No, not that. Okay, so game object. If you're not equal to null. Then reset you. That way we don't constantly return you and accidentally create clones every time it falls off. This will now reset and clean up. So we set these to null here, and then we go back through and say, hey, just filter out, like remove all of those. If you're not equal to null, that returns a true. So we keep you. Okay, I think that'll work. And then we'll get the objects, we'll reset the player, and it'll be all good. So let's try this again. And our velocity got reset. So that's a problem too. Our initial velocity, I think we have in game data as speed. So in reset game, we create our velocity, which is game data dot player dot speed. There we go. There we go. Okay, now it's working. Gravity is being affected. All right. This would be fun if I could type left or right in chat to change the direction of the platform. That would be really interesting. I was initially thinking that I might like have it be standing still, but every time it hits, it sort of like moves a little bit in the direction that it's hit. So that way you can sort of like knock other people's off on purpose, but also like not really. But I kind of like that too. And yes, this is a different game. So what I'm doing here, and I guess like the entire point about this Infinite Runner game is I just went through the book called Game Programming Patterns and learned a whole bunch of things about how to make games, how to like organize stuff. I'm using a lot of these patterns here in this specific game. I have not done those in a drop game. And now I'm taking everything that I learned and applying it to here. So that's where all those like events are coming from. Like I learned that pattern. Okay, so this is really nice. Now, of course, we're saying like really when we clearly shouldn't worry about this. So let's now stand. Like we want to make sure that we can stand on the ground. So what does that mean? That means in the physics module, every time that we update, we're updating our velocity. We also want to if we're standing on a block, not apply gravity. Well, maybe not apply gravity. We want to reset our downward velocity and not move down, essentially that. So we need to detect where we are. So we have our own location. We need the blocks below us. That's what we really need. And the only reason we need the blocks below us is to determine if we're standing on ground. So we have our current location, and the only reason we have that is because GameObject is calling apply force gravitational force, and it's this dot location. Okay. Now I don't have access to the grid here. I mean, I kind of do, it's a global, but I shouldn't directly access the grid. The grid is calling update and passing everything through. So I could pass, when I call update, I can pass all the cells below. I kind of like that. So if we start from the end here, our physics module, we're going to take in location, and we're going to take in like cell below. Maybe this could be like grid cells. Or maybe this doesn't care. So what we really want this to be is just to be nearby game objects. That's all we really care about. Nearby game objects. Then we want to do a bounding box collision with all these nearby game objects. So we want to check to see everything that's in there. So this could be an array. So if we are moving, we've added our location to our velocity. Let's then determine, are we colliding with any of these nearby objects? So this could be like is colliding with, and then we have our own, so we have our location, and then other, an other object. Okay. So to run this, we need to loop through all the nearby game objects. If this is an array, and I can set that up to be a default as an array, so it knows that that's what it should be. So nearby game objects dot for each. We have the game object. We only want to call this if the game object is not ourself. And so we're going to be getting all the game objects that are in our own cell and in the cells below us. So if, I guess like if game object dot ID is exactly equal to this dot player ID, so our own ID, then we don't really care. We want to return out of this for each and just skip it. Otherwise, we want to call this dot is colliding with pass location and then the other game object, like that. Okay, so then we can handle colliding with. So that's maybe not like is colliding with. Handle colliding with. And then that way we can now do whatever collisions and side effects come with that. The one thing that frustrates you with JavaScript is when the code gets large, you can't keep track of the types of variables, so you have to run it and see what it actually contains. Yes, that is a big problem with JavaScript. Although I kind of like it at the same time. Like I actually haven't moved to TypeScript, mostly, well, at least for personal projects. For work projects, I think I would prefer to move to TypeScript because it's more than one person working on a project. For myself, I don't know. Like I don't really get like too bothered by running into the type, sort of unknown type of what it is. I guess it's also because it's only me working on it, so it's easier for me to understand what's going on. And also, I can just make changes to the code base and not worry about anybody else getting upset that I made changes to the code base. I think the real thing is when I'm programming in TypeScript, I really miss the super strong type systems that you can get in like programming languages like Rust. And so I just feel nostalgic for that, and I just rather program there. JavaScript, I'm like, ooh, it's so different. It's like so freeing. I get like whenever I'm like, oh, Rust is like too type heavy. It's like, oh, well, okay, I'll just go to a language that is Wild West. Okay, so handle colliding with. We have our location, we have the other game object. Our location is just a vector with an X and Y, and this one has a location in it. So how do we want to deal with this? We need to check to see if, bounding box, right? We need to check to see if any part of us is impacting with part of them. So I guess let's start with gravity downwards. If the bottom of us is clipping through. So this is going to be if our location.y, if that is greater than or equal to. Now our locations, this is going to be a little bit more interesting, isn't it? Because how do we know? We need to know our size, our height too, don't we? Because our location is actually in the top left. Now we're the physics module. We don't have access to the player, unfortunately. But we could have, we could pass in our height and our width. that's in here. Our height and the width. So we can pass this in here. So this dot height, this dot width. In the physics modules and update, we have the nearby game objects. Is that true? So we need whatever nearby. And then pass those in. And that leads me to believe that I'm probably going to want you to be updated here. So nearby game objects can be passed in, and then we'll just pass this in too. And so that'll be update off of game object, which means the grid, when it calls update in handle update around here somewhere, we're going to have to get the nearby game objects and then pass them in here. All right, so update, we're getting our width. So player width, player height. We know that's that because this is just the physics for this specific player. And then you made some visibility changes on Stackit. You did a PR? Awesome. I'll take a look at that after I get this working. Okay, so handle colliding with, we have our location, we have the game object. Let's go ahead and pass in also the player width and the player height. Okay, so now, if our location.y plus player height. All right, there we go. That's just to be able to get that information. So if the bottom of our player, if that's greater than or equal to the top of the other game object. So this is gonna be the other game object dot location dot y. Okay, now that's just the y's, right? I need to make sure that like my x is also in between. So if I'm like falling down and I'm mostly like above, I guess in this case, it's just a standard bounding box. I always forget how to do this, and I haven't created any kind of snippet for it, but I really want to do that. So let's go find MDN. I remember we did the AADDBB bounding box collision detection. MDN has one that we could just, borrow. So here this is. If rect1 is less than .x is rect2, okay. This is essentially what we want. I'm gonna move this off to the side so I can read it a little bit easier. Okay, so if rect1.x is less than rect2.x plus the rect width. So if the left and right, so if the top, and this is based upon like the top left points. So if the left-hand side of the rectangle is less than the right-hand side of the other rectangle. So that's what we want to do. Now to like make this like a little bit simpler, I'm gonna say const my left equals, this is gonna be our location dot x, and then const other right equals, and this is gonna be the other game object dot x plus other game object dot width. So that's going to be our first if statement here. So if my left is less than other right. So my left has to be less than the other, because obviously if my left is greater than the other right, I'm past it. Like I am not impacting it, definitely. And okay, the next one, rect1.x plus rect1.width. So that's gonna be my right equals our location.x plus player width. And this is going to be the other left. Right? Yes. Just that. Okay, so then that's the next thing is if and my right is greater than other left. So my left has to be to the left of their right, and my right has to be to the right of their left. Then, third thing here, rect y. Okay, so then we're going to do the exact same thing with the top and the bottom. So we're going to have my top. So it's going to be our location dot y. Okay, so that will now give us, now we can do this exact same thing in here. So then, and it's going to be my height, so my my top, that has to be less than the other bottom. And my bottom has to be, I did less than, so that has to be greater than the other top. If this gets tripped, we are colliding. So this is a little bit interesting. How do I stand on top of it? I want to reset this. Basically, I could check to see where I was and where I will be. Like if I wasn't colliding before and if I am colliding now. You have to write collision detection for tons of games. Isn't there an easy library to implement it? Yeah, I'm sure there's tons of libraries where you can just implement it and just hand it things that have widths and heights and go. Unity. I mean, yes, Unity does handle that also, but that's also not web. I believe that there are actually like physics engines or like physics libraries. You can just do like the collision math and just say like, hey, I have this thing that has a location and it has a width and a height. Tell me, is it intersecting with this other thing? But what I really want to do here is determine if I'm standing on top of it or if I somehow like clipped in from somewhere else. Because if I just move myself, if I'm colliding with it and I suddenly like move myself to the top of it, that's not necessarily the best thing here. So let's check to see if I'm above it first and then the next thing I'm down below it, I clearly should be standing on top of it. So we have this handle colliding with. Let's actually move this back to is colliding. And that way I can just run that twice really quickly. Where am I going to do this? So I have the old x, location at x. I probably just want the old location, right? So old location equals location dot copy, I think. It's either copy or clone. Okay, location.add, we've added the velocity to it. We notify that we moved and we put the location in there. So before we do that, we want to handle all of our collisions here. And so we have our old location. Okay, so we want to first check to see, well, okay, yes. If it's us, we don't really care about this. However, if we are not colliding with, okay, so if this dot is colliding with, so it's gonna be not, right? If we're not colliding with, old location, player width, player height, game object, and we are colliding after, okay, this is like double collisions detection, so it's not the best, but because I'm using the grid system, this should actually make it so it's not doing too many calculations per frame. So if we are colliding with them and we were not before, we need to check to see, were we above them before? Or were we just to the left? So this is another fun, this is probably a terrible idea. But I'm doing it anyways because it's the only way I can think about it right this second. Let's see, so if this dot old location dot y, if that is less than game object dot oh yeah, I didn't do caps checking on those commands. Probably would be a good idea. Okay, so if we were above, then we're trying to stand on the thing. So we want to now say this dot location dot y is now going to be equal to game object dot location dot y. So reset that just in case we clipped down below. And then, is that it? Oh, we want to also reset our downwards velocity. So this dot velocity dot y is equal to 0. Usually just lowercase everything before the compare. Yeah, I mean, I just forgot to do that. Okay. Will this make us stand on here? I don't know. I think we're missing nearby game objects. I think that's like the main thing. I don't remember if this is gonna fail or not. Let's try it. Yeah, well, that's not working because we're clearly still falling through. So I think what's happening here is that we're not actually passing any nearby game objects in. So here, physics module and update, we go to game module update. Okay, it has nearby game objects. That means in the grid for update, we need to pass it in the nearby game objects for the next index y. I guess we can't. It has to be like the current, like what is around us. So right now, all we care about is in the same cell and in the cell below us. So let's get, well, we have that. Let's see. Okay, so we have get game objects in cell, and it returns just an object of those. And we probably want to convert that into an array. I think so. Yeah, we just want to convert that into an array. Which we could do with a method here. So let's do convert object to array. Let's see. Maybe put game objects in array. And so then we're going to take in a cell, and we're going to loop through that cell and put them into the array. So okay, so that's a pretty simple like conversion here. So we have an array, and we're just going to convert everything in to an cell as an object, just put it into an array and pass that in. There's just references, so it should be pretty fast and pretty low in memory. So put game objects in array, and so here we're going to get essentially 2 of these and then concatenate them together. So const nearby game objects is going to be equal to an array, and then I want to concat this. So nearby game objects dot concat, and that takes in. Okay, I can spread the items. So we're going to do dot dot dot. This dot get objects in cell, and we want the current cell that we're in. So current index x, current index y, and then the exact same thing. This dot get objects in cell, and this is going to be current index x +1. And actually right now, we're only caring about like below us, right? So it's just y +1. There we go. Then we're going to pass in the nearby game objects. Okay. Error. This dot get game objects in cell is not iterable. So let's see, grid.js, line 91. Is that because you didn't return an iterator? Get game objects in cell. Oh, because I need to convert them to put game objects in array. This is fun. Put game objects in array and do that. Get game objects in cell is not defined because you need to be a push. No, you need to be a dot this. Can access property 8. This dot cells y is undefined, so line 139. I thought it should return false if we went in. So this dot cells y is undefined. Okay, so try to get x of y. Let's take a look at their debugger statement. So we're getting 2 and 7. We're getting ourselves okay, so we're fine here so far. Then we hit it again and we get 8. Oh, y is undefined. Okay, so get game objects in cell. The y is undefined. So it's not that it tried to get outside of it, it's that this is literally not right. So get game objects in cell. You should be fine. Oh, I need current index x. That's my problem. Same x down 1. That's all I care about. Oh, I thought it was gonna work. Okay, so no errors. I would need to see in the physics module, what are we getting here? What are our nearby objects? Nothing. We got absolutely nothing. Are we passing those in? I guess not. So here's our name, nearby game objects. Are we getting these properly? So the x and the y, so current index x, current index y, and then it's the current index x, Print mxy plus 1. Wait, do you return a new one? There we go. Okay. So I'm seeing these objects here. So here's the player, here's the start, and here's the floor. I apply the force to the player, and they're probably underneath the floor already. Okay, so hold on. So if not colliding with, and then colliding with, I'm checking to see if you're greater than. Okay, so that should be fine. I don't think I'm clipping into them to begin with, but let's say I move myself in game data, I like start myself a little bit higher. So like, I don't know, 300. Yeah, so I still fell through. So I can see myself and, okay, I can see the start there. That seems to be wrong. I don't see the floor below me. Oh, right, because I was above it. It wasn't until down here that I now have the floor below me too. I have my height, I have my floor. And my physics. I guess like one question is, am I ever colliding with it? Like, is that considered a true? So if this happens, no, okay. So my logic is incorrect. So if we're the player ID, return. So we're not going to try to collide with ourselves. If we're not colliding with them, with the old location, and then we're colliding them with the new location. So this is not happening ever. So we're not even getting in here. So let's try this. Let's try just colliding with. Nope. Okay. We didn't console log that either. And so we have our nearby game objects, which is these, right? Are they getting through? Oh yeah, they are, because here's our nearby game objects. So we see them. We see that this is an array of our nearby game objects. If we're moving, let's see, location.add. So we add our velocity to our location. We loop through all the nearby game objects and we get a game object. So we can move you down here. Let's say to here. Why are you still an array? Physics module, line 32. Oh, right, because I want you to be game object. Yeah. Okay, so I now see this thing and like what it is. We can see, okay, start, floor, all that fun stuff. So if we're colliding with, I guess we also don't care about if we're like, we only care if we're running into a floor right now. So really it's going to be game object dot type is not exactly equal to game data dot floor. Okay. Okay, so now we can see here's all the floors that are near us. And it's obviously like the same one. Maybe we just like rotate a few of them. If this is colliding with so let's debug right here. Okay, so we can see I want to move down to here. Okay. Let's step in. Okay, so is colliding with, we can see we can see our location, X is 148, 366, our player width, our player height. That seems wrong. Our player width and our height, I think those are backwards. So we have up here, player width, player height. Player width, player height. Yeah, I know. Let's go to game object. This dot width. Oh wait. Update this dot width. This dot height. Okay. Let's take away some of these breakpoints and see if that fixes it. Nope, it doesn't fix it, but that was obviously a problem. And we're not getting that console log. So is colliding with, let's do a breakpoint there and we'll get all of our, actually let's just do a breakpoint here. Here, before we Okay, that I thought that was going to be it, but that wasn't it. Okay, so I return actually a Boolean now, as opposed to just returning nothing at all, undefined. So is colliding with this didn't happen. So if we come back to here, sort of breakpoint back. Yeah. Wait, did that not triggered? Let's trigger you. There we go. Other right is nan. Oh, we've got a number. We got a type problem here. Oh, that's fun. Other left is undefined. Other right is nan. So let's. So all these numbers are correct except so other right is nan because other game object.exist dot location dot x. Plus width, and width is a number, so then dot location dot x. Okay. Okay, so now we have an actual error. Can't access property y. This dot old location is undefined. So where? I think your clone. This dot location dot clone is not a function. Okay, so then you are copy. Oh, this dot old location. We really want you to not be this. Okay, we're getting closer now. Can access property y. This dot location is undefined. Line 38. Because it's location. Okay, so we have a collision. We collided with the floor, so that's good. We set our velocity to 0. I sort of see it like trying to reset, but it's so if old location dot y is less than game object dot location dot y, oh, it would have to be the bottom of it. So plus player height. Okay. So if old location dot y plus player height is less than game object, maybe less than or equal to. No, that's not it. Then location dot y equals, oh, game object dot location dot y minus player height. No, okay. And then setting this dot velocity dot y is 0, so reset that. Is this actually happening? Like, is this running? No. okay, that's a problem. Okay, hold on. So this code isn't running. That's why like none of this stuff is doing anything. We have this collision with. So okay, so if we're colliding with the player. Oh, so if the player is colliding with the floor. We console log the collision. We see that happening now. But then now we're also saying if the old location.y, so this is failing now. Maybe let's not do this check. If I just say, hey, I'm colliding, I'm now going to reset my location. Does that work for us? Yes, it does. Okay, and then we can collide with the there. So now we slide it across the floor. Okay, that's a good sign. Which means we can now put our game data back. So we're back to 350. And we just slide along the floor until we hit the triangle. Okay, so that's fine. Now, if I turn off the collision with the spikes again, we want you, turn you off. We fall off the edge. Okay. Now, I want to change the layout of this a little bit. So in game data, things are happening, yes. So here, let's do start, floor, floor. Let's do a gap in here. That's a good sign. Like even with a single gap, if I kind of want it to stop when it's like hitting the side, so it like hits there and then goes straight down, but it doesn't like pop back up to the top, which is what I was afraid was going to happen. So that's a good sign. Now, if I did want it to like impact the side and then just sort of like stop its horizontal movement, I probably need to like figure out the math for that. I can turn you back on because I added a gap ahead of you. I would need to figure out, I guess that's where I need to figure out, okay, were we to the left of you and now we're to the right of you? Were we above you and now we're below you? So if this is colliding with, so if we're colliding with you, we now need to check to see, okay, if we were above you, if the bottom of us was above you, so if that's less than or equal to other game object. Wait, do we even have an other game object here? We don't. That's our problem. Oh no, we do. We have game object. Never mind. Game object dot location dot y. And so here's where I want to reset that. But I'm not completely sure this works. Yeah, it just falls through the floor because this is coming back as false. I guess this would be old location. If old location.y plus player height. Wait, did I slide around for a little bit? I did. Oh, I'm fine until I move into the next cell. Oh, interesting. Okay. I'm fine until I move into the next cell. So I'm sliding along this first one. I move into here and I start moving down. And it's like, well, screw you. You're no longer, like, you started falling and you're no longer like above us. So that's not cool. So I would need to figure out how to, like, I probably need to get this one too, is like nearby objects need to be part of that one too. So like if I do handle update, let's also get the ones next to us. This is not the best way to deal with it. I should probably create a function to, let's say, get like nearby objects. And then this is going to be current index x plus 1 and y plus 1. So bottom and to the right. There we go. Now I can slide around until I hit the gap and then I fall down. So that's perfect. That's what I want. So I think this will work and now will impact the floor properly. So that's a really good sign. And we'll impact spikes when we hit them. And so now we need the ability to like hit the edge of the floor as we're like hitting into it and then stop a horizontal movement. I guess we could say in our physics module, we might be able to do that by just saying, hey, if we were not above it and we hit, I wonder if we should just say, you know what, else we must have hit it with the right-hand side. So therefore, our location.x, we want to set this to be GameObjects.location.x minus player width. This dot velocity.x equals 0. Remove this collision here. There we go. Now we hit the side and we just drop straight down. So this is our now movement system. I don't have jump yet, but we do have the ability to dive from falling off the edge, and that is perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and push this code up. Where's my? Here's Kraken. The player can now fall down gaps. I'm going to push that up, and then I think that's about it. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a marker, as this is going to be the end of this video. So marker, end falling